Hello everyone, welcome or welcome back to my channel. I'm here today with my December wrap up. I'm going to apologise in advance. I'm going to try and do this quite quickly because I've only got 12 minutes left on my memory card and I don't want to have to film too much on my phone because I know the quality is not great. So apologies A for the fact that we're going to get straight on and rattle through, and apologies B that probably the ending of this video is going to have to be filmed on my phone because I don't have a spare memory card, but let's just get straight on with it. So the first book I read in December was Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. This is the prequel to Legends and Lattes, so it's following Viv before she opens up the coffee shop in Legends and Lattes. This wasn't quite what I expected. I still enjoyed this. I gave it a 3.75. I definitely preferred Legends and Lattes. I felt like that book had more of a point. I found this one a little bit more difficult to follow because I was kind of like, what is the goal here? Like, what's the overarching goal of this book? But it was still fun. It was still nice to spend time back in that world and back with the characters. So I would still definitely recommend it, especially if you loved Legends and Lattes and you just want a bit more time in that world. I would recommend this. But yeah, I did prefer Legends and Lattes personally. The next book I finished was Redeemed by Lauren Asher. This is the final book in the Dirty Air series, and honestly I want a standing ovation, guys, for finishing this because I DNF'd the second and third books. And I still went back to try this one because everyone says that Redeemed is the best one. So this one is about two characters who are both in a bit of a little bit of a rut. They're both not quite sure what the future holds for them and kind of where they want to go in life. And they initially meet and don't get along, but then are thrown into a situation where they have to fake date. So it's fake dating, which I love. But there's something about the writing, like this story has so much promise and it really could have been a very impactful book, but it wasn't, because I think Lauren Asher's writing in this first series isn't the best. I love her books now. I think the Lakefront Billionaire series is miles apart from the Dirty Air series. I think she's improved so much over the time that she has been writing. But just in this first series, I do think the writing lets it down a little bit. So much of the speech is unrealistic, like massive blocks of speech, and it's like no one speaks like that. No one says those things. They should be your internal thoughts. Like, you don't need to say everything out loud. So yeah, it definitely had a lot of potential. It just didn't quite live up to the potential. But I still gave it a 3.25. It was still an enjoyable book to read. It wasn't bad by any means. It just wasn't, it didn't hit as hard for me, I think, as it did for some other people. We've had a few DNFs this month, the first of which was The Essex Serpent. I just gave up. I've tried to read it like 4 times, guys, and it's just not the book for me. I've spoke about it in so many reading vlogs because I've tried to read it so many times. It's basically about a woman whose husband passes away and she moves to the countryside. So I was like, that sounds up my street, love that, go her up the women. You live the life you want to live, but it's just really boring. So boring. So much unnecessary stuff, so many unnecessary characters. So I just ended up DNFing, unfortunately. The next book I read was the second book in the Darkest Minds series by Alexandra Bracken, and I gave it a 2-star. I didn't love the first book. I think I gave the first book a 3. Basically, it's a dystopian series where all kids have apparently got a disease and they're all locked up in these camps. And it follows their journey in the camps and what they kind of want for the future and what they're trying to do. But it's just boring. Like, the first book I found boring, and then the second one was more of the same. It was just the first book rewritten over and over and over again. They just do the same thing over and over and over. It's just the same scene repackaged in a slightly different setting every time. And I'm not going to read the rest of the series. It's just not for me. I think if I'd have read this when I was younger, I probably would have enjoyed it more. But because I've read so many good like dystopias and fantasies now, I think the bar is too high for me to be reading a 4-book series where the books are really thick of just the same thing happening over and over again. The next one was another DNF. We weren't having much luck at this point in December. It was Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, and I know this book is beloved. I know so many people love it, and I love that for you. I just wasn't connecting to it. The writing style just was not for me. It was really taking me away from trying to connect to the characters and connect to the story. The author, I think, just tried too hard to make the writing like quirky, and it took away from the story for me. I get why people like it. It's basically a YA book, like a YA contemporary, coming of age, between two boys who I assume fall in love. I didn't get to that part, but I assume that's the plot of the book. And I get it, like if you connect to the characters and you can get past the writing, or if you enjoy the writing, I get it. I just couldn't get past the writing, and I didn't want to finish it and give it a really low rating because I just didn't see the point when I knew I wasn't going to enjoy it, because it was just, yeah, the writing was just irritating me. The next book I read was Our Violent Ends by Chloe Gong. This is the second and final book in the These Violent Delights duology. There are interconnected series that I do plan to read, but the first one is just a duology following these two characters. And I gave this one a 4-star. It's basically Romeo and Juliet retelling set in 1920 Shanghai. And I can't say obviously much about the second book because so much happens in the first one. Saying anything about the second one will just give the story away. But yeah, it obviously follows on from the first one, the Romeo and Juliet retelling. Everything going on in Shanghai. It's not just about the romance. Obviously in Romeo and Juliet, the play, is very much like about them falling in love. These books, there is so much going on where the characters are together and they spend a lot of time together for various reasons that you find out. But there's so much other stuff going on. Like the plot isn't their romance, if that makes sense. The romance is just part of a much bigger plot and much bigger things going on. I slightly preferred the first one. I found the second one just not repetitive, but just it didn't wow me as much because obviously it wasn't like new anymore, and nothing happened in the second one where I was like, oh my god, wow. But I still really enjoyed it. Obviously I gave it a 4-star. I just love the characters and love the world. Then I read The Christmas Tree Farm, which I actually finally have a physical copy of. All the books I've spoken about so far, I've either already unhauled them because I didn't like them or I never owned them. Christmas Tree Farm by Laurie Gilmore. This is part of a series that is basically Gilmore Girls fanfic. So it's a very small town. In this one in particular, we've got Kira, who buys a Christmas tree farm despite the fact that she doesn't actually like Christmas. And yeah, the story goes from there. It's a romance. It's not a particularly great romance. All the romances in this series, that's very rude of you making noise when I'm trying to film. All the romances in this series are very like insta love, very quick. Don't read these books if you are looking for a stellar romance. Just read them for the vibes. It did have nice cozy Christmas vibes, and the other books in this series match like their seasons as well, but yeah, I wouldn't read these for the romances. I would just read them for the vibes if you want a nice seasonal read. And I gave this 2.5 stars because by this point I was a bit sick of the vibes. I was a bit like, okay, we're on the third book of the series now and we're still just reading for vibes, so I won't be carrying on with the rest of the series. But I'm not going to unhaul it. The cover's very pretty and I didn't hate it, it just kind of made me feel nothing. Then I did the tandem read for the Throne of Glass series, so Tower of Dawn and Empire of Storms. I'm so glad I did the tandem read. I think the pacing of the two books are very different and the vibes are very different, but for me that worked well to keep me very much intrigued. I think particularly if I'd have read Tower of Dawn on its own, I would have rated it lower. I gave them both 4.5 for context. But interweaving it in with Empire of Storms, I think worked really, really well. That's the way I would recommend to do it. I get why the different paces could be jarring for people, and I get why people might not want to do the tandem read, but I think it worked really well. Obviously I can't talk about what they're about because they are the 5th and 6th book in a action-packed series, but yeah, I would definitely recommend Throne of Glass. Then I read a few little novellas. So I don't know if you've seen, a few different authors came out with like a little set of Christmas novellas. So the first one was Cruel Winter with You by Ali Hazelwood. I gave this one a 4-star. Ali Hazelwood I think just knows how to do a novella because she seems to understand that you can't fit a full romance into a novella. So the thing that she did really well in this is that the characters already had a backstory. And you got glimpses of that. You got to see enough of the backstory and enough in the present day for me to make it convincing. So it was a 4-star, which for a novella is a really high rating. I love Ali Hazelwood's novellas. She's got the Loath to Love You bind up as well. I loved those. So yeah, really enjoyed Ali's novella. Then we've got Merry Ever After by Tessa Bailey. All I'm going to say about this one is surely it was satire. It's got to have been satire. Like it can't have actually been that bad and be taken seriously. I gave it a 2-star. It probably deserved a 1, but it made me laugh out of sheer disbelief so many times that I had to give it a bit of credit for being so ridiculous. And then the third one was All by My Elf by Olivia Dade. This one was just silly. Like, it was quite fun. Basically, it's just one long chapter of them in a hot dog van, like two colleagues falling in love in a hot dog van in the Christmas season. So it's definitely silly. I gave it a 2.5 because a 3 just feels a bit generous because it was ridiculous. But it wasn't bad. It was just like silly, and now I'm moving on from it, you know? Number 4 was Merriment and Mayhem by Alexandria Bellefleur. Sorry, I don't know how to say that. I've never heard anyone talk about this author before, but she must be pretty popular. Anyway, I was actually really enjoying this one. It's about a girl who moves into her grandma's house and she has to keep calling the emergency services or having them called for her because she just has mishap after mishap. And it's her romance with one of the emergency service workers who comes to save her a few times. The reason that this one got a lower rating, so I gave it a 3-star, it ended quite abruptly, I thought. I really wish that we could have like another chapter or 2 of this one, and then I would have loved it. Even just another 10 pages just to round the story out could have bumped the rating up because I was really enjoying it. And I think I would definitely want to read more now from this author. I'd love to read one of her full-length novels to see how like her stories actually develop when she's got the space on the page, because these novellas are very short, by the way. Some of them are like 50 pages, some of them are 70. They're really, really short. So yeah, it was a shame that it ended quite abruptly, but I was really, really loving this one. I apologise, we've now had to move over to my phone because my SD card is full and I don't have enough battery to empty the SD card. I don't want to bore you, but basically I have to have the camera turned on whilst I export the clips. I don't have enough battery to do that. It's a mess. So the 5th and final of those novellas is Only Santa's in the Building by Alexis Daria. Again, I gave this one 3 stars. This one was quite fun. I thought the romance was a little bit flat. I didn't necessarily get like the chemistry massively between the couple in this one, but it wasn't badly written. I think it's just, I don't think we saw enough, because again, the characters did know each other before, but I don't think we saw enough of the emotion from their past interactions to really convince me of the romance. But it was still good. It was definitely better than the Tessa Bailey one because I'm kind of traumatised by that. Anyway, the next book I read was another DNF, and it was Cat's Cradle by Kurt Vonnegut. Again, I've spoke about this because I've tried to read it quite a few times over the last couple of months, but I've just decided to DNF. I decided it's not the Kurt Vonnegut book for me. I did really like some of his other books, so I'm not saying he's not for me, but I just didn't like this one. It just wasn't, I wasn't getting anything from it at all, so I just decided to DNF. It's basically, it's a science fiction, and I didn't get far enough in to really understand the point of the book. But yeah, it just wasn't giving science fiction to me in the way that I want, like a Skyward. That's the kind of science fiction I want, like on a planet in space. This book just wasn't given for me, so I just decided to DNF. I then read The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year by Ali Carter. This is like a cozy mystery / romance, and basically our main 2 characters are both writers, and they get an anonymous invitation to spend Christmas with their biggest fan. And our female main character is like, what on earth? Because they've been invited to England and they're from America. She's like, I'm not getting on this plane. Are you mad? Why would I? Like, I don't know who this person is. But her like friend / like agent, manager, I can't remember who the woman is. She's like, no, you need to go. Like, you need to go. Like, this is a really good opportunity. You need to go. And the female main character is so confused. She's like, what? But she goes. And when she gets on the plane, she finds the other person that's been invited is her arch nemesis, who is also a writer. And I won't say whose house they end up at, because I feel like that kind of be a spoiler. But basically, like, people go missing, people nearly die, like, there's a lot going on. A lot of mysteries to solve. And yeah, it was a really great book. It was fun. It wasn't too serious, like, it didn't take itself too seriously, but the mystery was still intriguing. Like, it still had stakes, even though it didn't take itself too seriously. And the romance ended up being really sweet as well. The romance definitely wasn't the main point of the book. You get to see the 2 characters together, like, all the time because they're solving the mysteries. But I liked it more for the mystery side rather than the romance side. But yeah, great book all around. Would definitely recommend for a little festive read. You might have to wait now till next year. You can probably still read it now in the next, like, couple of weeks. But it is set over, like, the Christmas kind of weekend. Christmas isn't always on a weekend, but like Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, like the days building up to Christmas. is when it's set. So it's definitely a nice little festive Christmassy read, but with some intriguing elements. It doesn't just rely on the Christmas, like the Christmas Tree Farm relies on the fact that it's Christmas. This book doesn't. It just so happens that it is set at Christmas. And then the last 2 books I read this year, I feel like someone is looking down on me and being like, she needs a good end to the year. She needs a solid end to 2024. So the second to last book that I finished in December was The Fake Out by Stephanie Archer. This is the second book in the, I believe it's called the Vancouver Storm series. I liked the first one. I gave it a 3-star, but I didn't love it. This was a 5-star. It's fake dating. I'm always hesitant to say enemies to lovers because it's not enemies, is it? Like, it's a contemporary romance, but the contemporary romance version of enemies to lovers is what this is. And, oh, guys, it was stunning. It was so stunning. There is a lot of smut in this book, and I thought that would put me off because I heard that before I went in. But, hear me out. The relationship doesn't rely on the smut. So it's not, I don't like it in books where there's so much smut to the point where it replaces like declarations of love, them showing their feelings. In this book, for me, it didn't. It was just alongside it, or it was part, like, they showed emotion during this book, if that makes sense. I just love this. It was so stunning. Just, I can't say too much because obviously I don't want to spoil it. I think just saying that it's fake dating and enemies to lovers is enough. Please read this. Even if you didn't love the first one, please read this one. It's so much better than the first one in the series. As I said, 5-star, obsessed. And then the final book that I finished this year was none other than Kingdom of Ash by Sarah J Maas. And this was a 4.5. It wasn't a full 5-star. I feel like I'm always torn on how I feel about the endings of Sarah J Maas's series. She's not the biggest risk taker, which on one hand means the final books in her series are probably not going to be 5 stars, but I'm also kind of grateful for it because I know the likelihood is my heart is not going to be completely shattered and broken. This is obviously subjective. I'm not saying she doesn't kill characters off. She does. She definitely kills characters off. It just depends who you get attached to, and I think I've just got lucky that the people that she's killed off in her series weren't people that I was particularly attached to. So in my eyes, I'm happy with how the series ended, and I've got all the people alive that I wanted alive. But obviously that's not going to be the case for everyone because we all love different characters. But yeah, a fantastic ending to the series. I really, really enjoyed it. And that is every book I read in December. I'm not going to drag this on because I know the quality on my phone isn't very good. So I'll just round this out by saying thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you so much for watching any video of mine that you've watched this year. If you've commented, thumbs up, subscribed, anything like that, thank you so, so much. It's one of my goals in 2025 to respond to comments more because I have a really bad habit, not just with comments, but in real life, I will read a message and then just never respond, even like to my own parents, to my boyfriend, everyone. So it's a goal of mine to interact a bit more in 2025 in the comments and over on Instagram as well. My socials are always linked down below. My Etsy shop is also linked down below. And yeah, thank you so much for everything this year. Please give this video a thumbs up down below if you did enjoy, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in my next one either tomorrow or in a couple of days. Bye!